I walked into my boss's office on a Tuesday morning and quit the job I'd had for 23 years. No backup plan, no safety net, no idea what I was going to do next. Just the absolute certainty that if I stayed one more day, I was going to lose myself completely. I was 58 years old, and everyone thought I'd lost my mind. My husband asked if I was having a breakdown. My mother told me I was being foolish. My friends said I should just stick it out 2 more years until I could retire with full benefits. And maybe they were right. Maybe it was foolish. But here's what I knew. I was dying inside, slowly, quietly, but unmistakably. And I had a choice. I could keep dying for 2 more years, collect my pension, and retire into a life I no longer wanted. Or I could take the terrifying leap into something unknown. I chose unknown. And what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about starting over, about age, about what's possible when you finally listen to what your life is asking you to become. I'm going to tell you that story today, not because it's extraordinary, but because it's real. And if you're sitting there right now, wondering if it's too late for you, wondering if you've missed your chance, wondering if reinvention is only for younger people, this is for you. Let me tell you about the life I was living before I walked away. From the outside, it looked fine. Good, even. I had a stable job in corporate marketing, a nice house in the suburbs, a marriage that had settled into comfortable routine, 2 grown kids who were doing well. I was checking all the boxes that society tells you define a successful life. But inside, I was hollow. I'd wake up every morning with this weight on my chest, not quite depression, not quite despair, just emptiness. I'd go through my day on autopilot, meetings, emails, presentations, performance reviews. I was competent, I was reliable, I was good at my job, but I didn't care about it anymore, and I hadn't cared for years. I kept thinking, is this it? Is this what the rest of my life looks like? 58 felt young in my body. I had energy, I had ideas, I had things I still wanted to do. But it felt old in the context of my career. In corporate America, 58 is practically retired already. I wasn't being given new projects. I wasn't being considered for advancement. I was being managed out slowly, gently, but unmistakably. And the worst part? I'd become invisible. In meetings, I'd offer an idea and it would be ignored. 10 minutes later, a younger colleague would say the same thing and everyone would love it. I'd built that department. I'd been there longer than anyone. But suddenly, I was the person they were working around, not with. And I started to feel like maybe they were right. Maybe I was past my prime. Maybe my best years were behind me. Maybe I should just be grateful I still had a job and stop wanting more. But there was this other voice, quieter, deeper. It would whisper to me in the shower, in traffic, in those moments right before sleep. And it would say, this isn't your life. You're living someone else's life, and you're running out of time to live your own. I tried to ignore that voice. I tried to be grateful. I tried to focus on the good things. But the voice got louder. And one day, I was sitting in a meeting, listening to my boss explain a new initiative that I knew was going to fail because we'd tried it 3 times before. And I looked around the table at my colleagues, most of them younger, all of them pretending to be excited about this doomed project. And I thought, I can't do this anymore. Not for 2 more years. not for 2 more months. I can't keep showing up to a life that doesn't fit me, hoping it will somehow start to feel right. So I started planning my exit. I didn't tell anyone. Not my husband, not my friends, not my colleagues, because I knew they'd try to talk me out of it. They'd give me all the rational reasons to stay, and the reasons were rational. They made sense, but they didn't account for the one thing that mattered most. I was disappearing, not physically, but spiritually, emotionally. The person I actually was, the person I'd been before I spent 30 years conforming to corporate expectations, she was fading. And if I didn't do something soon, she'd be gone completely. So I saved money quietly. I researched what it would take to leave. I calculated how long I could survive without a paycheck. And I made a plan. Not a plan for what I was going to do next. I didn't have that. But a plan for leaving, for walking away, for giving myself permission to figure out who I was outside of the role I'd been playing. And one Tuesday morning, I walked into my boss's office and I quit. The look on his face was shock, then confusion, then something that looked almost like respect. "Where are you going?" he asked. And I said something I'd never said before in my professional life. "I don't know yet." And that not knowing, that was the most honest thing I'd said in years. The first 3 months after I quit were the hardest of my life. Not financially. I'd saved enough to give myself some runway, but emotionally, psychologically, I was unmoored. For 23 years, my identity had been tied to that job, to that title, to that paycheck. And suddenly I had none of it. I'd wake up in the morning and there was nowhere I had to be. No meetings, no deadlines, no structure. At first, I thought that would feel like freedom. But it didn't. It felt like terror. Because without the job, without the role, I had to face a question I'd been avoiding for decades. Who am I when I'm not performing a function for someone else? I didn't know. I'd been a wife, a mother, an employee, a daughter. I'd been defined by my relationships and my responsibilities. But stripped of those roles, stripped of the external validation, who was I actually? I spent weeks just sitting, staring out the window, journaling, crying sometimes. My husband didn't know what to do with me. He'd come home from work and ask how my day was, and I had nothing to tell him. I took a walk, I read, I thought. He'd look at me with concern, like I was having some kind of midlife crisis, and maybe I was. But it wasn't the kind of crisis that needed fixing. It was the kind that needed space. I started noticing things I'd never noticed before, the way light moved through the trees in the afternoon, the sound of birds in the morning, the rhythm of my own breath when I wasn't rushing. I started reading books I'd been meaning to read for years. Not business books, not self-help, just novels, poetry, things that fed my soul instead of my career. I started cooking again. Really cooking, not just throwing together meals between meetings. I'd spend hours in the kitchen experimenting with recipes, tasting, adjusting, creating, and I realized something. I'd forgotten what it felt like to do something just because I enjoyed it. Everything in my life had become transactional. Everything had to serve a purpose, achieve a goal, produce a result. But cooking a beautiful meal for myself for no reason other than the pleasure of it, that was revolutionary. My friends would call and ask what I was doing with my time. "Are you looking for a job? Have you started consulting? Are you working on a business plan?" And I'd say, "No, I'm just being." And they didn't understand How could I not be doing anything? How could I just waste time like that? But it wasn't waste, it was the opposite of waste. I was reclaiming myself, slowly, carefully. I was learning to hear my own thoughts again instead of just reacting to everyone else's demands. And in that space, in that quiet, something started to emerge, a curiosity about writing. I'd always loved writing. In college, I'd considered majoring in English. I'd kept journals my whole life, but somewhere along the way, I decided that writing wasn't practical, that it wasn't a career, that it was just a hobby. So I'd set it aside, focused on the sensible path, the stable job. But now, with all this time, with all this space, the desire to write came flooding back. I started writing in the mornings, just for myself, no agenda, no goal. I wrote about my life, my regrets, my fears, my dreams. I wrote about the feeling of walking away from everything safe. I wrote about what it felt like to be 58 and starting over. And something happened. The writing started to take shape. It started to have a voice, my voice. Not the corporate voice I'd spent decades perfecting. Not the careful, professional voice that never said anything controversial, but my actual voice, raw, honest, unfiltered. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was creating something that mattered, not to anyone else, to me. I started a blog, just a simple WordPress site. I didn't tell anyone about it. I wrote about reinvention, about fear, about what it's like to dismantle a life you spent decades building. Because it doesn't fit anymore. And I published it, put it out into the world. I didn't expect anyone to read it, but people did. Not thousands, not hundreds at first, but a few, then a few more. And they started leaving comments. This is exactly how I feel. I thought I was the only one. I'm 56 and I've been thinking about leaving my job for 3 years. This gave me permission, and I realized something profound. My story wasn't just mine. It was theirs too. There were thousands of women over 50 who were living lives that didn't fit anymore, who were suffocating under the weight of expectations, who were wondering if it was too late. And they needed to hear that it wasn't. That reinvention at 58, at 60, at 65 was not only possible, but necessary. Because the alternative was dying while still alive. And I'd almost done that. I'd almost let myself disappear, but I didn't. I quit. I sat with the terror. I reclaimed my voice. And on the other side of that terror was something I'd never expected. Freedom. Real freedom. Not the kind that comes from money or status, but the kind that comes from knowing who you are and having the courage to live as that person. That's what those first 3 months gave me. Not a new career, not a plan, not certainty, but myself. And that, it turned out, was the foundation everything else would be built on. 6 months after I quit my corporate job, something unexpected happened. A woman reached out to me through my blog. She'd been reading my posts about reinvention, and she said something that stopped me in my tracks. Have you ever thought about coaching women through this transition? Because what you're describing, what you're living, I need help with that, and I'd pay you for it. I laughed when I read it. Me? A coach? I didn't have certifications. I didn't have a framework. I didn't even have my own life figured out yet. I was still in the middle of my own reinvention, still figuring out what came next. How could I possibly help someone else? but she was serious. And she wasn't the only one. 2 more women reached out that same week. Same question, same request. Can you help me figure out how to start over? And I thought about it. I thought about all the things I'd learned in those 6 months. The mistakes I'd made, the fears I'd faced, the questions I'd wrestled with. And I realized maybe I didn't need to have all the answers to help someone else ask the right questions. So I said yes. I started working with that first woman. We'd meet on Zoom once a week. And I'd just listen to what she was afraid of, listen to what she actually wanted, listen to the gap between the life she was living and the life she dreamed about. And then I'd ask her questions, not the kind of questions that had right answers, but the kind that made her think differently. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? What are you afraid will happen if you leave? What's the cost of staying? And she started to shift. Week by week, I could see it happening. She wasn't just talking about leaving her job anymore. She was making plans, taking steps, building the life she actually wanted. And 3 months later, she quit. She sent me a message. I did it, I walked away, and I have you to thank for that. But I didn't do it. She did. I just held space for her to figure out what she already knew, and that's when I realized this was my work now, not corporate marketing, not climbing some ladder, but helping women who were exactly where I'd been, women who were suffocating, women who were ready to change but terrified to take the leap. I started taking on more clients. Word spread, women would refer their friends. And within a year, I had built something I never planned to build. A business, real business, not a side hustle, not a hobby. A thriving coaching practice, helping women over 50 reinvent their lives. And I was making more money than I'd made in corporate. Not because I was selling hard, not because I was promising transformation in 30 days, but because I was real. Because I lived it, because I wasn't standing on a stage pretending to have it all figured out. I was in the arena with them, still figuring it out myself, still learning. And that authenticity, that's what people were hungry for. They didn't want a guru, they wanted a guide. Someone who'd walk the path and could say, yes, it's terrifying. And yes, it's worth it. I started doing workshops, small groups of women gathering in living rooms or on Zoom, talking about what it means to start over. We talk about fear, about guilt, about the voices that tell you you're too old, too late, too foolish. And we dismantle those voices together. Because here's what I'd learned. Those voices aren't true. They're just familiar. They're the internalized messages of a culture that wants women to shrink as they age, to disappear, to be grateful for whatever they have and stop wanting more. But we're not built to shrink. We're built to evolve. And 58 isn't the end. It's the beginning of a completely different chapter. A chapter where you finally have the clarity to know what matters, the courage to let go of what doesn't, and the freedom to build something that's entirely your own. I remember one woman in particular. Her name was Diane. She was 62. She'd been a nurse for 40 years. She was exhausted, burnt out, ready to retire. But she didn't know what retirement would look like. She was afraid it would just be empty. She came to one of my workshops, and she barely spoke for the first hour, just listened. But then someone asked, "What would you do if you weren't afraid?" And Diane started crying. She said, "I'd open a bookstore. I've wanted to do it my whole life. But it's too late now. I don't have the energy. I don't have the money. I don't know anything about running a business." And I looked at her and I said, "What if none of that is true? What if you do have the energy, you just haven't been using it for something you love? What if you don't need as much money as you think? What if not knowing how is exactly the point?" She looked at me like I was crazy. But 6 months later, she sent me a photo. It was the front of a small bookstore, cozy, warm, inviting. The sign above the door said, "Diane's Corner." She'd done it. She'd opened the bookstore, not a massive one, not some commercial venture, just a small, independent bookstore in her town. And she was happy. Genuinely, deeply happy. She told me later, "I thought my life was over. I thought all I had left was to retire and fade away. But this feels like I'm just getting started." That's what I saw over and over again with the women I worked with. They weren't starting over because their lives had fallen apart. They were starting over because they finally had the courage to build something true. And the business I'd built, it wasn't something I'd planned. It wasn't something I'd strategized. It found me because I stopped trying to force my life into a shape that didn't fit. And I started paying attention to what wanted to emerge. And what emerged was more fulfilling, more lucrative, more aligned than anything I'd done in corporate, because it was mine, fully mine, built on my terms, serving people I cared about, creating transformation that mattered. That's what's possible when you stop living someone else's version of your life and start building your own. Not someday. Not when you're younger or braver or more prepared. Now. At 58, at 60, at 65. Whenever you finally decide that your life is worth claiming. I need to be honest with you about something. Reinventing my life at 58 wasn't all triumph and transformation. There were losses, real losses. And if I'm going to tell you this story truthfully, I need to tell you about what I gave up. First, I lost friends. Not all of them, but some. The ones who couldn't understand why I'd walk away from stability. The ones who took my choice as a judgment of their choices. I had a friend, Karen, who I'd worked with for 15 years. We'd been close. Lunches, happy hours, weekend texts. But after I quit, she pulled away. She'd make comments. "Must be nice to just walk away. Some of us have to keep working." As if my choice was a luxury. As if I hadn't agonized over it. As if I hadn't been terrified. And I tried to explain. I tried to tell her I wasn't judging her life. I was just choosing mine. But she couldn't hear it. Because my choice made her uncomfortable. It forced her to ask questions about her own life that she wasn't ready to ask. So she distanced herself. And eventually the friendship faded. And that hurt. It still hurts. Because I didn't want to lose her. I just wanted to live differently. But that's what happens sometimes when you change. The people who were comfortable with who you were become uncomfortable with who you're becoming. And you have to decide, do I stay small to keep them comfortable? Or do I grow and accept that some people won't come with me? I chose growth, and I lost some friendships in the process. Second, I lost certainty. In corporate, I knew exactly what was expected of me. I knew the metrics. I knew the path to advancement. I knew what success looked like. It wasn't fulfilling, but it was clear. When I started my own business, I had none of that. I didn't know if it would work. I didn't know if anyone would pay me. I didn't know if I was good enough. I had to build everything from scratch: the business model, the marketing, the pricing, the boundaries. And there were months where I didn't make any money. Months where I questioned everything. Months where I thought maybe everyone was right. Maybe I should have just stayed. That uncertainty was hard, harder than I expected, because I'd spent my entire adult life building security. And now I'd dismantled it. And there were nights where I lay awake, terrified that I'd made a terrible mistake. But here's what I learned. Certainty is overrated. Certainty keeps you safe, but it also keeps you stuck. And the discomfort of uncertainty is actually the discomfort of growth. You can't grow and stay comfortable. It doesn't work that way. So I learned to tolerate uncertainty, to sit with not knowing, to trust that I'd figure it out. And I did, eventually. But the process was messy and uncomfortable, and nothing like the clean success stories you see on social media. Third, I lost the version of myself that needed external validation. In corporate, I was constantly being evaluated: performance reviews, promotions, raises. And those external markers told me I was doing well, that I mattered, that I was valuable. But when I left, I didn't have that anymore. Nobody was reviewing my performance. Nobody was giving me raises or promotions. I had to learn to validate myself, to know that I was doing good work even when nobody was telling me I was, to trust my own judgment instead of waiting for someone else's approval. And that was one of the hardest transitions, because I'd spent decades measuring my worth by what other people thought of me. And suddenly I had to decide for myself, am I enough? And some days I wasn't sure, but I kept showing up. I kept doing the work, I kept building. And slowly I started to trust myself, to know that my worth wasn't dependent on anyone else's opinion, that I could validate my own choices, that I was enough exactly as I was. That shift, that was freedom, but it required letting go of the part of me that needed constant reassurance from the outside world. Now, here's what I gained. I gained time, real time, not time stolen between meetings or not time stolen between meetings or squeezed in on weekends, but time that was actually mine. Time to think, time to create, time to just be. I could take a walk in the middle of the day without guilt. I could read for hours without feeling like I was being unproductive. I could spend an afternoon with my granddaughter without checking my phone constantly. That time, that's priceless. I'd spent decades selling my time to someone else, and now it belonged to me. And I realized how much of my life I'd missed while I was busy being busy. I gained alignment. My work now is an expression of who I actually am, not who I'm supposed to be. When I show up to coach someone, I'm bringing my whole self, my story, my struggles, my truth. I'm not performing a role, I'm being myself. And that alignment feels like coming home. It feels like my insides finally match my outsides. Like I'm no longer pretending to be someone I'm not just to fit into a corporate mold. I gained meaning. In corporate, I was helping companies sell more products. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it didn't feed my soul. Now I'm helping women reclaim their lives. I'm witnessing transformation. I'm part of something that matters. And that gives my life a depth it never had before. I wake up excited about my work. Not every day, but most days. and that's something I never had in 23 years of corporate life. I gained courage because I did the thing I was most afraid of. I walked away from security with no guarantee of what was on the other side, and I survived. More than survived. I thrived. And now I know. If I can do that, I can do anything. That knowledge, that confidence, it changes everything. I'm not afraid of taking risks anymore. I'm not paralyzed by fear of failure because I've already faced the biggest fear, and I made it through. So yes, I lost things, friendships, certainty, the comfort of external validation. But what I gained, it's immeasurable. I gained myself, my time, my purpose, my courage, and I would make that trade 1,000 times over. Because a life lived authentically, even with its losses, is worth more than a life lived safely in a cage of other people's expectations. That's the truth nobody tells you about reinvention. It costs something. But what it gives you is worth the price. Now I want to talk about the practical stuff. Because it's romantic to say I quit my job and followed my dreams. But the reality is more mundane. It's about numbers and timelines and difficult conversations. And if you're thinking about doing this, if you're considering your own reinvention, you need to know what it actually takes. First, I saved money. Not a fortune, but enough to cover 6 months of basic living expenses. I calculated what I actually needed to survive, not what I thought I needed, what I actually needed. Mortgage, insurance, food, utilities. I cut out everything else, no eating out, no new clothes, no vacations. I redirected that money into savings for 1 year before I quit. And honestly, that year of saving was the hardest part because it meant being disciplined about money while I was still at a job I hated. But it was necessary because when I quit, I needed to know I had runway, that I could survive a few months without income. That safety net was crucial. It allowed me to take the leap without feeling like I was gambling everything. So if you're thinking about reinventing, start there. Calculate what you need to survive and start saving it now. Second, I had a conversation with my husband. This was terrifying because he was comfortable with our life. We had security, income, a plan, and I was going to blow all of that up. So I sat down with him and I told him the truth. I told him I was dying inside, that I couldn't keep living this life, that I needed to leave. And I asked him, "Can you support me through this? Not financially necessarily, but emotionally. Can you trust that I know what I'm doing?" He didn't say yes immediately. He had a lot of questions, fears, doubts. But he listened. And eventually he said yes. He said, "I don't completely understand this, but I love you. And I can see how much you're struggling. So let's try it." And he meant it. When I quit, he didn't panic. He didn't try to talk me out of it. He supported me. That support was essential because reinvention is hard. And doing it alone with someone who's doubting you would have been nearly impossible. So if you're married or in a partnership, have that conversation early. Be honest about what you need and ask for support. And if your partner can't give it, that's information you need to have because you might need to make decisions based on that. Third, I didn't try to figure everything out before I left. This was actually liberating. I didn't have a 5-year plan. I didn't have a business model. I didn't have a website or a logo or any of the things I thought I needed. Just quit, and then I figured it out. And here's the thing. You can't plan your way into your new life. You have to live your way into it you have to quit the old thing, then pay attention to what wants to emerge. If I'd waited until I had everything figured out, I'd still be in corporate, still dying slowly, still pretending. But by quitting first and figuring it out second, I created space for something unexpected to happen. And something unexpected did. The coaching business found me. I didn't plan it, I didn't strategize it. But it emerged from where I actually was, from what I was actually thinking about, from the conversations I was having. So don't wait until you have a perfect plan. That's just procrastination dressed up as preparation. Quit, then figure it out. Fourth, I let go of what other people thought. This might be the most important one, because everyone had opinions about my choice. My mother thought I was irresponsible. My colleagues thought I was crazy. Some friends thought I was having a breakdown. And for a while, I let those opinions matter. I tried to justify my decision, to convince them I was making the right choice. But at some point I realized it doesn't matter what they think. It only matters what I know, and I know that staying would have slowly destroyed me. So I had to give myself permission to do something that made no sense to anyone else. I had to be willing to look foolish, to be judged, to be misunderstood. I had to be willing to look foolish, to be judged, to be misunderstood. And you know what? I was all of those things. People did judge me. People did think I was foolish. People did misunderstand. But I survived it, and more importantly, I stayed true to myself. And that's worth more than anyone's approval. Fifth, I started small. I didn't try to build a massive business overnight. I started with one blog, then one client, then a few more. I grew slowly and organically based on what was actually working, not based on what I thought should work. This meant I didn't get rich quick. There were no overnight success stories. But it also meant I could test things, adjust things, build something sustainable. I've seen so many people quit their jobs and try to launch something huge and fail spectacularly because they try too much too fast. But I took it slow, and that slowness allowed me to actually build something real. Sixth, I learned to sit with discomfort, because reinvention isn't comfortable. At any stage, leaving my job was uncomfortable. Starting from scratch was uncomfortable. Building a business with no guarantee of success was uncomfortable. And there were moments where I wanted to go back, where I wanted to find another corporate job and pretend I'd never had these dreams. But I didn't, because I'd learned that discomfort is just the price of growth. And I was willing to pay it. So if you're thinking about reinventing your life, know this: it will be uncomfortable. But that discomfort is information. It means you're stretching, growing, becoming. Doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. Seventh, I built community. I didn't do this alone. I found other women who were also reinventing. I joined writing groups. I took classes. I surrounded myself with people who understood what I was trying to do. And that community held me up when I wanted to give up. Because reinvention is lonely. And having people who get it, who are doing it too, makes all the difference. So find your people, online or offline. People who are also asking the big questions, who are also brave enough to change and build community with them. Eighth, I stayed connected to why. On the hard days, when the money was tight and the uncertainty was overwhelming, I'd come back to the core reason I'd left. I'd quit because I was dying. because my life didn't fit anymore because I had to. And that core reason never wavered. The details changed. The plan evolved. But the core reason stayed the same. And when I felt lost, I'd come back to that. Why did I do this? Because staying was killing me. Is staying still killing me? No. Then it was worth it. So know your why. Write it down. Come back to it on the hard days, because your why is stronger than your fear. These are the practical things that made my reinvention possible, not magic, not luck, not some special talent I had that others don't. Just money saved, honest conversations, willingness to not know, disregard for other people's opinions, small starts, tolerance for discomfort, community, and a clear why. If you can do these things, you can reinvent too. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. If you're still here with me, if you've watched all the way through this story about what it looks like to reinvent your life at 58, I want to invite you into something. Subscribe to this channel, because what we're building here isn't just about success stories. It's about permission. Permission to question the life you're living. Permission to imagine something different. Permission to take the leap when the time comes. And I need you to know, you're not alone in this. There are thousands of women over 50 who are sitting exactly where you are right now, wondering if it's too late, wondering if they're crazy, wondering if they should just accept the life they have. And they need to hear from people like us, people who've actually done it, people who can say, yes, it's terrifying. Yes, you might lose some things. And yes, it's absolutely worth it. So subscribe, be part of this community of women who are reimagining what the second half of life can look like. Now, here's something I want to say directly. I know that not everyone can do what I did. Not everyone has the privilege of being able to save 6 months of expenses. Not everyone has a supportive partner. Not everyone can take the financial risk. Your situation might be different. Your constraints might be different. But the principle is the same. You can reinvent within your constraints. Maybe you can't quit your job, but you can start building something on the side. You can invest 3 hours a week in something that matters to you. Maybe you can't travel the world, but you can explore your own city with fresh eyes. You can take a class, you can learn something new. Maybe you can't completely change careers, but you can shift how you relate to the work you do. You can bring more of yourself to it. You can set boundaries that protect your peace. Reinvention doesn't have to look like mine. It has to look like yours. And whatever that looks like, whatever your version of this is, it matters. Because the point isn't to quit your job spectacularly. The point is to stop dying inside, to stop pretending, to start building a life that's actually yours. And you can do that wherever you are, whatever your circumstances. You just have to decide it matters enough to try. Now, let me take you into the final part of this conversation, because we've talked about my story. We've talked about what it took to reinvent, but we haven't talked about what came after, about what it actually feels like to be living this new life, about the unexpected gifts that came from choosing myself. And that's where the real magic is, because reinvention isn't just about escaping something. It's about becoming someone. And becoming someone, that's a lifelong journey, one that gets better with time, more interesting, more rich. And if you stick with me through the final block, I'm going to tell you what that looks like. I'm going to tell you about the version of myself I've become and what that's made possible, because that's the real story, not the dramatic quit, but what happens after. If I'm sitting in my home office right now, looking out at the garden, it's early morning. The light is soft. There's coffee next to me. And I'm about to start a call with a client, a woman who's 56 and terrified. She quit her job 3 months ago, and now she's wondering if she made a terrible mistake. She has no income yet, no business plan, just a gnawing sense that she had to leave or she'd disappear completely. And she called me because she needed to hear from someone who'd been there, someone who'd stood exactly where she's standing and made it through to the other side. And as I prepare to talk to her, I think about what I'd tell her, what I'd tell you. Here's the truth. Reinvention isn't a destination. It's a direction. You don't quit your job and suddenly arrive at your new life, fully formed and perfect. You quit. You sit in the discomfort. You pay attention. You take small steps. You adjust. You fail sometimes. You keep going. And over time, slowly, a new life emerges, not the one you planned, but the one you actually need. For me, that new life looks like this. I'm doing work that lights me up. I'm making good money. I'm helping women in a way that feels like my purpose. But more than that, I'm at peace. I wake up without that weight on my chest. I look at my reflection and I recognize myself. I'm not performing anymore, not for anyone. I'm just here in my own life, being myself, and that peace, that recognition, that's worth everything I gave up to get it. The friendship with Karen still stings sometimes. I wish I could have her and my new life. I wish my choice hadn't cost me that. But I wouldn't go back because the alternative is a slow death. And I choose life. Here's what I want you to understand. You have more power than you think you do. Right now, in this moment, you have the power to choose differently. Not tomorrow. Not when you've saved enough money or gotten enough permission or figured it all out. Now. You have the power to start asking better questions, to start paying attention to what your life is actually asking you to become. You have the power to say no to what doesn't fit anymore. You have the power to imagine something different. And that power, that willingness to choose yourself, that's where reinvention begins. Not with the dramatic quit, but with the quiet decision that your life matters enough to be lived on your own terms. I think about the woman I was at 58, suffocating, disappearing, convinced that my best years were behind me. And I think about the woman I am now, 5 years later, more alive than I've ever been. And I think, what if I'd waited? What if I talked myself out of it? I'd be 53 now, still in that job, still dying. The thought terrifies me because time is the one thing you can't get back. And every day you spend in a life that doesn't fit you is a day you're not spending in a life that does. So here's my final word to you. Don't wait. Not for more money, not for more certainty, not for someone else's permission. Don't wait until it's perfect. It will never be perfect. Start now. Start small. Start with a question. What would I do if I wasn't afraid? Write that down. Sit with it. Let it live in you. And then, when you're ready, take the first step. It might be quitting your job like I did. Or it might be something smaller, something quieter. But take it, because the woman on the other side of that step, She's waiting for you. She's waiting to be born. And she's magnificent. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for considering your own subscribe to this channel. Because we're building something here. A community of women who are brave enough to ask for more, to expect more, to become more. Share this with 5 people who need to hear it. A friend who's trapped in a life that doesn't fit. A sister who's wondering if it's too late. A colleague who's drowning in her career.